Hey gorgeous, Tegan Jade here, coming to you live from my house as always. And today I am interviewing someone who is absolutely incredible and really knowledgeable around so many things, but especially around the area of sex and love and relationships, EJ Love. And we are going to be talking about relationships and how to attract your ideal relationship. So, thank you so much, EJ, for coming on to my live stream. So, EJ is a love priestess, a relationship and sex coach, a sexual healer, a tantric practitioner, and a speaker and an author. So, that is a lot.
It is.
EJ is a well-rounded woman. So EJ, I would love to know more about what a love priestess actually is.
Sure.
A lot of people don't really know. To be honest, I don't actually fully know what a priestess is myself.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess it's the last few months that I've really come to personally, own and embody the priestess energy.
Yeah.
So a priestess energy, being a priestess energy means that you're really focused on being integrated in self. So what this means is that you tend to be balanced in your masculine and feminine energy. So you're more working in your healthy feminine and your mature masculine. Of course, we're always going in and out of these. We're only humans, so we really are conscious or aware of, hang on, where am I functioning from? Where am I coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going into immature, or am I going into wounded? And then bringing ourselves back into center. Now, priestess, what she really embodies is also being able to surrender and being able to be vulnerable. But the only way that she can do that is if she knows her boundaries and she honors her boundaries. And so that is constantly checking in to be like, okay, where am I in this? Where am I not honoring myself? And where do I need to create boundaries and honor those boundaries so I can be vulnerable, so I can go into my feminine? So it's like getting that masculine on to be boundaried, to be able to go into the vulnerability of the feminine. So, and I've kind of added on the love priestess because my last name is Love. And I love love, and I love talking about love, and so everything I embody is around love. Yeah.
I love that. So I would love to know, and I'm sure that everybody else watching this would love to know more about, your profession and your journey that has led you into more tantric work. And yeah, I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah, sure. Where to start?
Yeah.
How far do we want to go back?
Condensed version.
Short and condensed. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey. So I guess I lived a pretty interesting life in terms of my relationships and my sex life. And we'll go into the really short version. Mm-hmm. So I was married when I was 17 and quite young after my parents split. I was a bit rebellious, and it was a very sexual relationship, and it was my first, I actually lost my virginity to that person.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then
it
is interesting. Yeah, I was a bit slow to the, I was really like, I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, really, it's really shy when it came to boys. Who would believe that now?
I know.
Yeah. So then after that ended, which it became abusive, and then I was into like lots of casual relationships, lots of casual sex, and just like kind of, I guess, using sex as power. And then I became a swinger. So I was running swingers parties.
What? That is crazy.
Yeah. So it's been a pretty wild life. And then that led me to working in the sex industry, which then led me to Tantra. So after going through all these wild experiences, and within that I'd been in lots of relationships where I'd self-sabotaged, or I'd attract narcissists, or toxic abusive relationships, and so I was kind of always in and out of that, and never really having connection, like proper, deep, open-hearted connection, because actually I was so closed and my heart was quite closed, so I kept attracting unavailable men, or men I didn't feel safe with, and all that sort of stuff. So it's been a pretty full-on journey. And then I started going through a spiritual awakening, so to speak, about 5 or 6 years ago, and I started doing personal development before that, and I started to realise how I've been showing up in the world. And then I got into Tantra and sexual healing about 3 years ago. And so, yeah, that's been my journey so far, and here I am.
Here you are. That's a really amazing story. You've been through so much. And I think that there's so many people that can really learn from you. And I think that I've really watched your, blossoming, I guess, even in the last few months. And you've come to such a good place of really owning your story and being very transparent. And I think that that is so powerful. So I think that we can all learn a lot from you, especially in regards to relationships. So I've noticed that you're really owning this arena right now. That is like your thing,
Thank
right?
you.
Yeah. And I really love some of the stuff that you say, and I just believe in it so much. So let's talk about relationships a little bit.
Yay!
I think that's something that all women love to talk about, and I know myself, I love talking about relationships because it's a really interesting topic. And I think that relationships are mirrors. They are mirrors of ourselves. And so, EJ, could you just elaborate on that a little bit, like how relationships work in that regard, like the mirror theory and what that's about?
Yeah, so what tends to happen is a lot of people attract based on wounds.
Yeah.
So if you've had similar experiences, you've got similar belief systems, it's like that theory of, like attracts like. And I believe that, these people come into our lives to show us, and generally we'll get triggered by someone in relationship the most. It's the most time that we get triggered is when we're in a relationship, because we're having to be quite vulnerable, and all our fears are coming up, maybe the fear of rejection or the fear of abandonment or being not good enough, all that sort of stuff is playing out. And then the other person gets that come up as well. So it's a perfect time for you actually to use that as an opportunity for healing, because that person is showing you your wounds. And a lot of what happens is people go into blame or numbing, and simply because they're not aware that this is happening. So ideally, what you want to do is you want to recognize what is coming up in me, what am I seeing here, what are these thoughts and feelings, and to be conscious about that, and to start exploring it and seeing, well, where am I not honoring myself?
Yeah.
Where am I not loving myself? Where am I, if I'm not thinking I'm good enough, I'm afraid to be rejected. Where is that not, because you're not loving yourself, you're not seeing yourself as being worthy. So this is your own personal stuff to look at, because you will act and behave based on those beliefs, based on those wounds. And it's usually completely unconscious. You have no idea that you're doing it. I'll give you an example, is that, you might have a fear of rejection. So you might actually energetically check out from the relationship when you think the other person might leave you, which will then signal the other person to leave, because their rejection will come up. So they might be in the whole, well, I'll reject you before you reject me. And so they leave, and then you think, oh, look, see, I got rejected. So you've got a question there.
Yes. Do you both feel that it's always a mirror, or do some break through that?
Yeah, so I can see what Roscoe's saying there.
Yeah.
So I've just finished what I was saying, and then I'll get back to that. So this is, you can then see that that person has brought that up, but a lot of people will then go into blame and be like, see, I get rejected, see, I'm not good enough, that person left, when actually you kind of stepped out before. And so they were actually then mirroring, and then they would have felt rejected as well. And so, so it's just those wounds playing out. So to step out of that is that you need to do the self-reflection, looking at, where are you not honoring yourself? Where are you not respecting yourself? Where are you rejecting yourself? So at the end of the day, that person is showing you where you are where you're basically rejecting yourself. So that's something to just consistently being self-reflective when you're in a relationship. And particularly when you have some time when you're not in a relationship, is the perfect time to look at your past relationships so that you don't attract the same thing over and over again. So
there's so much to that, really, and it's just a constant. Yeah, I think that relationships are, definitely the best way to grow and the best way to really see what's going on for us, because without relationships we are blinded almost to what is, underneath, like lurking, like all about, subconscious stuff and our patterns that we can't necessarily see. So that's why relationships are awesome. Very triggering as well. So
yeah, that's why it's sometimes it's like, oh wow, things just don't happen so much when you're single.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, oh, I hardly ever get triggered.
Yeah.
Or at least I have time to self-reflect if I do get triggered, like it's not about someone else.
That's right. And so what are there different types of relationships? Because I've noticed for myself, and I know for a lot of other people from my observations, there are some relationships that are really intense, and then there are some relationships that are a lot more stable and long-term. So what do you think about that, different types of relationships?
Yeah, sure. So my view on this is that people really get wrapped up in the whole soulmate and having this amazing soul connection, and I've never met anyone that makes me feel like this, and they must be the one, and they complete me, and all that sort of stuff, and they're my twin flame, and it's just, I've had these experiences, so I really am speaking from a lot of personal experiences in these types of connections, and they are what I call wound mate relationships. So these people would trigger the shit out of me, and then it would be like, they would trigger my rejection wound, which would make me want to chase them. And then I was like, oh, but, the connection's so intense. But it was simply, and that person had a massive rejection wound. And so these wounds were like kind of, it's like an addiction to the intensity. And it's also the happy chemicals. So your dopamine and your oxytocin and the loss of serotonin when you're away from that person. And then people think that's love. And they think that, oh, that person must be the one. It's like, for example, some people, what I hear sometimes, like, oh, I didn't really like them at first. But then, then they like rejected me, and then I really liked them. It's kind of like as soon as they, if something's too easy, then they want what they can't have, because there might be a belief system sitting under that. And so then they want to go out and have that because they can't have it, right?
So true.
Yeah.
So true. That happens a lot.
It does.
And I find that, really interesting as well. And so I guess that would lead me to asking you, how can people that are in those situations move past that? If they are experiencing that drama and that conflict and constantly getting triggered, how can they move past that or move through that?
So, so this is going back to what you said before, where there's the other types of relationships that are a bit slow moving and might actually take a while to evolve. And sometimes they might seem a bit like, oh, is this a bit boring? It might be a friendship that eventually evolves into something more.
Yeah.
And those are actually the better relationships to be having, because it's not based on wounds, it's based on mutuality and it actually liking each other. Right?
So true.
Yeah, whereas the other one, it's like there's like a real love-hate thing going on. Like you hate them and then you love them and you hate them. And this one's like a gentle consistency.
Yes, I love that. Gentle consistency.
And so sometimes it takes time, okay? So don't write anyone off if it doesn't necessarily seem like that full-on thing is there.
Good advice.
Yes, because you might be comparing it to a wound mate, and you really don't want a wound mate. But the way to evolve a wound mate relationship into a soul partnership is actually through self-reflection, and both people have to be willing to do the work. It can't just be you. I've had, most people are trying. From what I've seen and with my clients is that they think that if they do the work, then the other person will step up and do the work. And in some cases that might happen, but it's like an expectation. And that's where I was at one point. I was like, and it started my healing journey. So I'm really grateful because it made me so committed to heal myself, because I thought if I healed myself, this person would heal too. And they didn't. But I went on this amazing healing journey to where I am now. And at the end of the day, these relationships are never about the other person. They're always about you. It's not about, like, because otherwise you're in attachment.
Yeah.
Like, you're actually attached.
Yeah.
So to break away from that, you have to work on yourself and do, you know, all that self-love, all that honoring and understanding your boundaries, things like that. And knowing where these people will maybe not be honoring you, maybe not respecting you, and how that is a reflection. So it's all about self-reflection.
Totally. And, you know, that self-love, self-worth and boundaries are massive when it comes to relationships. So, EJ, what are 3 things that if there is a woman watching us right now who would love to take action right now towards attracting her perfect relationship, what are 3 things that she can do right now? Not right now, not right this second.
Well, the first thing that has to happen is that you have to look at, have you dealt with your past shit, basically? Because if you haven't, you're probably going to attract the same thing. Your wounds are going to play out. The point of wound mates is to bring up your wounds, to look at them. If you do not, then you're going to keep attracting more wound mates until you choose to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, been there so many times, and until I got it, and yeah, they're just showing you, and you're just going to keep being re-wounded. So
Re-wounded.
Well, you will. It's a re-wounding over and over until you like decide, hey, I'm not going to go through this anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been out.
Don't re-wound yourself in another relationship. Yeah. Work on your shit first.
Exactly. Yeah, you tell them. I'm
going to preach.
Yeah. So looking at that, and so that requires, you know, a lot of self-responsibility, some deep healing work, inner child work, because most of this shit that's being triggered is from childhood. So, you know, you have to go there. So if you haven't done any of that stuff, or even if you have done some, because I'd already done a lot of stuff before I was re-wounded for the last time, I was like, oh, I thought I'd done all the work. And then it was like the next level. It was like, oh, no, now we've got to go deeper.
Yes, layers.
Yeah, and that was really looking at my shadow stuff. So it was really more about, what do I have to be responsible for how I've been showing up in relation to men. Like, how have I actually been the source of my experience, which was very interesting. It's been very interesting to look at. So that's the first thing. And as part of that, you'll start to see all the things you need to learn and work on so you can show up in a relationship differently. So the second thing is, and this is a big thing for a lot of women in particular, is boundaries. Yeah. And it's knowing what is being over-boundaried, because sometimes people that have been really hurt in a relationship will go into being over-boundaried. Yeah. So it's like not letting people in, not opening up your heart, not being vulnerable. Yeah, being totally actually really unavailable, pushing people away, like that is being over-boundaried, but you think you're being like, you're like freaking ice queen there, like, you know, you say something wrong and like, you're out, like that's it, like.